On November 11th, I called this meeting of the Clear Creek Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that its notice has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We do not have any community input today, and so we'll move to our first agenda item, which is consent agenda. And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as shown.
Thank you, Ms. Rowan. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, if you raise your right hand. It passes unanimous. Thank you. And we'll move on to our first item for information and discussion, strategic plan metrics.
Yes, thank you. President Sanchez, and at each monthly workshop, we are updating the board on metrics aligned to our district mission goals and relevant district strategies. And so this afternoon, we will look at metrics and progress towards goals 2 and 3. And we will begin that mission progress report with goal 2.1 to improve cohort growth on high priority learning standards, growth measures, and STAR assessed grades and content areas. So Dr. Henley's assessment and evaluation team compiles metrics each month for use by teachers, campuses, and district leaders to support progress towards this goal and strategy. And she will begin our presentation this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, so here's the strategic plan goal progress measure. Our mission to ensure students achieve, contribute, and lead with integrity.
And just give us 1 second to try to get that on the screen. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, so
Yeah.
so we collected data on just an update quick on 2 different measurements, our high priority learning standards first, and then we'll cover Dreambox. So what you're seeing in front of you is the beginning of the year. If you'll remember the last workshop, we gave you the beginning of the year assessment. We just gave you total percent. This one is actually the standards that were tested from the VOI and tested on the first teach for grade band. So you see that we improved in almost all content areas. Elementary math saw the greatest improvement. Elementary RLA, they're testing in the month of December for that second one, so we'll have an update for them in January. We did see some science growth, some pretty good science growth, as well as intermediate math growth. And our high schools were kind of holding steady right there in that for that first of those standards that were tested. And then the second information, that just an update real quick, is our Dreambox. So if you'll remember that Dreambox we showed you last time, K through 5, whereas at the end of the year, K should be close to a 1, to grade 1 should be close to a 2. You see our growth from beginning of the year to our October measure. What we did show is also 23-24, so you can see that we are pretty much in line with that same growth pattern that we've had previously with Dreambox. And that is the update for just 2 of our little measures that we've been providing for our campuses to measure 2.1. Any questions?
And we'll take a pause if there's any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we would like to share a mission progress report for goals 3.1 to invest in resources needed to foster a culture of innovation and improvement. And this includes increasing tuition-based pre-K for the 25-26 school year. So Ms. Hughes and Ms. Paulson will now share progress updates.
Yes, we're excited to share with you the update of our open enrollment growth that we've had this year, from certainly our standard that we've had for many, many years is our non-resident CCSD employees. You see the applications received, that's higher than our typical years. And then also you see the additional categories that have been added. The pre-K tuition-based pre-K is the over 400 applications received. And certainly you see the other areas that brought in some limited attendees as well, and we're going to talk about where we are for this year, but we'll also talk about what we're opening up for next year as well. But that's for this year. That's where we are. I think this chart is fascinating. We are always looking to understand and quantify pre-K. It is a puzzle that we continue to work on. I appreciate Ms. Corres back in there joining us tonight or this afternoon as well. But what this shows is certainly our school years from 21-22 up to what we're predicting for 25-26. But it's, the interesting column to your right is based on the census information that we're getting from our district births that are in our area, so that we can start looking at that as a tighter alignment to see how many births are within our school district and how many are actually coming into our total enrollment. And you can see that percentage over time from 39% to 48%, which is something that is quite remarkable. That we are seeing 48% of our students enrolling into CCISD pre-K from to that birth rate. You also see that our pre-K qualifying students, remember those are students that qualify for all the different categories in which they might qualify, whether it be income, language, need. But then there's also the tuition, which has grown this year as well. So we've expanded in our tuition-based pre-K. We're continuing to grow, and we are continuing to accept even applications as we speak into targeted classrooms across the school district where there's still space, and so we're still pushing that out. And speaking of that, you are going to share a little bit about what went up today, which is exciting for next year.
So for the following year, our metric is to grow pre-K tuition as well as our limited open enrollment to 400. That's our metric for next year. So we're beginning the process of recruiting, of informing families today. Our application window opened today, and then it will close on February 1st to allow for staffing and for us to kind of see where everything lands. I'm really thankful of the Office of Communications team that's been working on the marketing end of this. And so we have just a short little video that you'll see that will start being advertised on social media and other venues like on city channels and so forth. So we'll go ahead and play that video. And then also this week, we will be launching a dedicated website that's called discoverccisd.com. So it's a standalone marketing website for our school district. And because as you know, when you go to ccisd.net, it's very much geared to families that are with us currently. So this is really an opportunity for us to also measure our reach. So as we push this information out, how much is it really working? So we're excited about that. We have some samples of what that website will look like. There we go. And also, we will start placing out large billboards in front of our schools, very similar to what we did last year, recruiting and just letting people know that we have tuition-based pre-K and then the non-resident limited open enrollment. So we anticipate those numbers to grow on limited open enrollment as more and more people just become aware that it exists. And then we have been working with our city partners to make sure that it's communicated through our cities. Certainly not so sure that outlier cities are going to be that interested in helping us promote this opportunity, but we'll continue to work on those partnerships. And then we also have an affinity program where we're encouraging staff and families to refer a friend, refer a family, very similar to what you probably see in other areas. And that's launching this month as well. So that's kind of our update on our marketing side.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, and just because I haven't been able to follow along on my computer, can we go back to the chart showing the total enrollment? One before that, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so so total applications received. Is this the total, or I guess splitting pre-K and everything else into two separate categories, because I really think that's two different things. So the total number of out-of-district students we have now is 312 from employees, which we had before we could have before the new policy. And then the only ones that have been added under the new policy are 11 plus 3 plus 17, right? So that's 31 total. Have we looked at getting rid of the restrictions we put on the policy and just allowing open enrollment? And do you have any idea yet whether that would be effective in getting more applications? Because obviously this is something we want to grow. So
I think that, if I may, it is, we definitely are looking at expanding for next year and getting ahead of that early. I think our key is getting ahead, opening up early enough to know where they are so that we can staff for them. I know even these small numbers, but those small numbers matter if they land in the right place.
Right.
But I think that is a piece of that we are looking towards. For example, our tuition-based pre-K, we haven't had that open to non-CCISD resident. We kept that tight. So we work as we grow and learn. We started with a tighter band on that to begin with. But going into next year, there'll be spots open for applications for outside of the district. So to your question, the answer is yes at expanding and opening up those opportunities, as well as I know Mr. Moses in secondary has had more peace officers and even probably, I know it says 3 there, but I know there's a few more that have probably come in since.
Yeah, we opened it back in, can't remember when, but we opened the secondary back up for the grandparent and the police officer and the federal property at the secondary level, because obviously we have a little more flexibility with classes and schedules to do that. And we did receive some in since then. I can't give you a number.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to when we had this conversation last year. And I mean, I've always been a proponent of opening enrollment to anyone who wants to attend CCISD. We have empty seats at most of our schools. There are a few that we don't, but those are pretty few and far between. Enrollment is dropping. And so to me, it makes all the sense in the world to open enrollment to students outside the district who want to enroll in CCISD and whose parents can provide transportation and the things they need to do that, to blunt the impact of that enrollment problem that we're seeing within our district. And so when we talked about this last year, the thought was, let's restrict it to the categories we have up there: non-resident employees, peace officers, and grandchildren. See how that works out, and then look at expanding it this year. And I think now we're at that point. And so have we learned enough from kind of this pilot to be able to expand further? I mean, if we took a vote before the end of before December and just allowed it, would we be ready to do that?
Yeah, and I can, we certainly have felt like on these categories, and I can say we advertised it, but really I'm not sure that this advertising, this push campaign now, because we closed registration. Now, we did open it back up in secondary, but we closed it for elementary. When you get into some of these the peace officer and all of those other, the categories of grandparents, we did not get the response from grandparents that we thought we would, but I'm not sure that we communicated it as, we decided on it, we pushed forward. So, we're not sure. I think we'd like to try a full communication piece on it this year and get that information out. It's certainly not something that we have talked about going back, because we're just kind of having that pilot year. I think at some point that's certainly a conversation if the board wants to have that. But right now, I think our goal would be taking the policy that we do have and doing a full communication blitz, if you will, and making sure that that information's out there. I will be honest, I went to some organizations and they said, oh, we didn't know. I said, well, it's probably too late now, but, we'll get that next year. So I do think that the messaging is going to be important as we move forward. So that's our goal for us right now, unless there's a desire to make a change.
Because I would think the messaging would be a lot easier if it were just completely open. Then we don't have to search for grandparents, search for federal employees. We just advertise in the areas that we're looking at. I think about places like the part of Tuscan Lakes that's in Dickinson. They literally look across the street and the people in their neighborhood are going to Clear Creek High School. So you think about areas like that where there's probably a lot of pent-up demand for students who could go to Clear Creek ISD, but there's an arbitrary line kind of in the way. There are probably areas like that in the Clear Brook area also, where just on the, I know someone who, her next door neighbor, the line goes right through their house. And she's on the Pasadena ISD side. And so that house actually pays property taxes to Pasadena and Clear Creek ISD. So some of the neighborhoods are kind of carved up that way. And I would think we would see an instant boost if people in those areas were able to just enroll in CCISD, and obviously the money follows them. And so as we're looking at our long-term financial situation, and it makes no sense to be operating schools and having empty seats. especially when some of the districts around us are scrambling to do more with the schools that they have, and they're over full. I would think that would just be another factor encouraging people to come here. So when do we just get to say it's time to open the doors and we're ready for it? And we have our policies. All we would have to do is just strike out the restriction that says like all of the qualifications, essentially just say anybody, and see what it leads to. And we always have the option of the principals at the schools being able to decline a transfer. But anyway, I mean, if we did that, have we been through the process enough now over the past year to be able to anticipate what the challenges would be and deal with them?
And I think that would be a larger conversation for sure. The one thing I can say is we're staffed for the number that we have. So that's why we closed this registration. So we really don't have, we might have some building space, but we're not paying for extra teachers because we are staffed with what we have. So, you know, we're very careful. That's why the deadlines are as they are. We're hoping that we get some more in.
So the deadline is February 1st, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so then we start those budget meetings right after that. So that's why we're talking about this in early November, you know, or in November, so that we can get that communication out there again. We did last year, but you know, it's new, and it was something that we were really trying to message, but then our staffing does align with our numbers, so there's not an automatic, there's not extra seats in classrooms necessarily. Now facilities, you know, that's like, I think, and that's what you're talking about, in facilities, and we look at that, but that would require additional teaching staff too. So
Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
To speak to Trustee Bowen's point, have we surveyed those areas to see what the interest would be? Because if we did that, we might get a better sense of, you know, what that demand looks like. Then you could prepare accordingly. But doing this limited program, I don't see how you can extrapolate this to the community at large. So I think somehow you've got to get a sense of what that demand would look like so that you could plan accordingly. And, you know, what would that look like? Is it thousands? Is it a few hundred?
Right now, we have a pre-K survey out just to let us know of the interest for the upcoming school year, even before opening up the enrollment, just to do that and to predict that and just to see what the numbers are. But
Well, if you're already doing a survey, you could tack onto that with another question. Do you have other school-age children that you would like to attend CCISD? So it's something that, yes, it has been brought up, but I think we need to know. We need to see if there is that pent-up demand that anecdotally some of us think there might be.
I mean, if we were to pass a policy for the coming year, then I think we don't have a lot of time left, because we would have to vote on it at the November meeting, and then after that we would have to vote a second reading in the December meeting. So maybe that window would give us enough time to kind of get some of that information in if we have it available. The problem is that this window closes in February, and then it'll be another year before we can revisit it again. And I feel like just every time this comes up, it's, no, we've got to wait. No, let's do this little thing. No, let's do that little thing. Like, it kind of feels like this is what it felt like trying to get the GPA point change done. And eventually, after we finally bit the bullet and did it, everybody loved it. So I think this will end up being the same way, but we've just got to bite the bullet and do it.
I do think you mentioned policy updates that would be necessary. I do think we would also need to understand what new variables we would be inserting. So right now we filter based on these things. Are you a grandparent? Are you a federal employee that has children? If you open all of that up, I think variables we've talked about in the past do include, probably most heavily, is transporting students. And then if they're in certain neighborhoods or the distance that we would need to be able to transport them from. And so I would think that that's a significant one that we would want to consider if we were making an updated policy and what limitations we would have to place. So for instance, if somebody is commuting from a further distance and they happen to work in this area, but they're not a federal government employee, but they decide that they would like their child here, that may come with some expectations or assumptions that they would have access to things that we would normally provide for our students. And so I think that due diligence, I'm not sure if doing that within a month is practical.
Most of it's in the policy already. So if you look at the interdistrict transfers policy, there are a lot of qualifications, and I'd have to reread it, but I'm pretty sure it makes it clear that they have to provide their own transportation, their conduct requirements. It's not just a total free-for-all,
Right.
but that would be the section we would be looking at.
And I think Mr. McKay's point about what realistically, what do we think the demand would be? What would the level of interest be to do that? Because I imagine, I think in past conversations, we've also discussed what does that do for, homes and neighborhoods where people have chosen intentionally to buy within CCISD versus outside of CCISD. That's not necessarily something that we control. It happens just to be the footprint. But if we open that up, I think there are lots of partners and friends of CCISD that we would want to make sure had enough information about the decision and why we would be moving in this direction. I'm not sure if all of that can be condensed into revisions within a month, and then for us to be in a position to move forward.
Last year when we talked about this, we kind of all said we would spend this year talking about all those things, and it seems like we kind of haven't. But anyway, we just don't have a lot of time left.
Right. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Trustee McKay's point, more data is always better than less data. We need to get information if we're going to make decisions. That doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost a lot to get extra data, the data we would need to make decisions on this stuff. And I'm very confident we can craft policies that are fair to everybody who both lives inside the district and lives outside the district, meets all our legal obligations, and fills empty seats that are otherwise going to waste and otherwise costing us money to turn the lights on, even if we have to adjust staff levels.
So our next board meeting is the 18th, right?
A week from today.
A week from today.
So can we have added to the agenda on the 18th to discuss the FDA local policy? Because we would need to finalize, if someone's willing to second that, we would need to finalize that request today, since it's coming for a board meeting a week from now. So is there anyone willing to do that?
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. That just means we have a guaranteed spot on the agenda for whatever it is we could propose.
And of course, that since that's an announced meeting, that we give the whole community their 72 hours to know that we're going to be talking about this and to make whatever inputs they want.
Yep.
Okay.
3 minutes of open forum.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the next item. And it's the exploration team report.
Okay. So just a minute here. So we're kind of moving to progress report for goals 3.1, invest in resources needed to foster a culture of innovation and improvement. This includes increasing tuition-based pre-K, which we've discussed, And then continuing with that goal, part of that was our efforts to increase the number of educators in the National Board Certification of Teachers program. And so, as part of that goal and that strategy, Dr. Branch is going to share our efforts, just an update on the metrics for that.
Yes, a quick update. Thanks to Dr. Moses and the exploration team, our implementation team at this point, including Dr. Thornton. She's been busy. We are thankful for the work of those folks and mentor teachers. We are well on our way to increasing our number of National Board Certified teachers in the district. Currently, we have 14 Nationally Board Certified teachers district-wide. And in our pipeline, as of today, we have 77 teachers, and we're really excited about that. So 30 teachers will be going into the cohort support program, or pathway, and we have 47 who will be working independently in a self-paced program. I've listed there supports that will be provided for both of those pathways, and the key difference between the cohort support and self-pace is that within the cohort, those 30 folks will have a one-to-one mentor. And so we have 5 mentors in the district who are Nationally Board Certified currently, and they have helped to create the structures for this program. The first of 5 PL sessions for that cohort will be this Thursday. So that will be day number 1, and we have meetings throughout this semester and next in preparation for their submissions. And so typically, on average, it takes 2 years to complete the National Board Certification. So when I say in the pipeline that 77 will be entering that pipeline for a 2-year completion, and certainly some will finish sooner than that. We have some who've completed in a record time of 1 year. And so potentially when we report or give an update next year at this time, hopefully we have more than the 14 that we currently have today. That will hopefully be the report that we have for you at that time. Any questions?
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice our niche rating for being a great place to work was very, very high. And I was wondering if you believe this plays into that in any way. I mean, there might be a connection, but I don't know that there is definitely a connection or not.
It certainly will as we continue to promote. And remember, this information has been promoted since July when we kicked it off. As far as the district support that will be provided, it wasn't as firm in July. We didn't know exactly what that would look like, but it's been firmed up since that time with a lot of input from campus teachers as well as those who are already certified. But certainly as we continue to get the word out about the support that's being provided to ensure that we have world-class teachers in our classroom, this certainly does and will play a part in continued survey results for niche and others.
And I have a follow-up, and that would be, can you give me a handle if any other districts in Region 4 that are going into this as heavily as we are?
I don't know that we have very many who are going in as heavily as we are. We have learned from several districts, Conroe being one of those, and a couple of others who have given us some idea with regard to the structure, but certainly they have not gone as far as we have in regard to the mentor support in terms of those 5 PL days, et cetera. So we have definitely taken some other steps that they're now learning from us in that regard.
Well, I do commend that, and I hope that makes us, reinforces our status as a leader in the area.
We hope so too.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. And then the next item is our potential replication of the CTE Culinary Arts Program. Or we have one more?
With that, yes, we're going to talk about the exploration team.
Oh, yes,
So
sorry
we
about
have that. And so, and we're pretty excited about a few updates for you. Several people are here to share that with you. So our goal has been to provide innovative learning experiences to attract and retain students, and we talked about that. This effort is being branded as the Clear Creek ISD Stream of Innovation, and we have 2 updates for you this afternoon from exploration teams: Intermediate Stream, which is in development at this point, and College Preparatory Stream, which is in development towards the tail end of that, and we'd like to share some some information there as we discussed on Friday afternoon. So we'll begin with the continued development of what began as Vision 2030 to reimagine the intermediate learning experience. The district-wide launch course is our first major initiative towards this work. Mr. Moses, Dr. Thornton, and Dr. Mackay will share the development team's work towards Space Center Intermediate's school-wide stream, which will be launched next fall. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to present proposal for Space Center Intermediate and elevating that intermediate experience. We're super excited to share with you what our wonderful committee has put together. Dr. Thornton and Dr. Mackay are here with me as they played very, very important parts through this process. Again, as Dr. Engel said, it was a Vision 2030 process. If you remember back 22, 23, we met at NASA and began the Vision 2030 and what does school look like in 2030. And a big focus was on our intermediate system here. And so Space Center became our initial work, and starting there, and then of course expanding it over the next 4 to 5 to 6 years to incorporate all 10 of our intermediates. So we'll share this with you. Of course, stream for the intermediate stands for space, technology, robotics, engineering, arts, and medicine. We're looking to incorporate all these parts into our 10 intermediate campuses, providing students with ultimate experiences and opportunities to learn about all these pieces. So again, Vision 2030 was the beginning point of this. Again, reimagining that intermediate school experience and allowing students to pursue their passions. So we move to the next slide there. This is our committee. It was made up of district personnel as well as Space Center intermediate teachers and administration. Super excited to work with this group. We met on 3 different occasions to put this together and finally came up with our final proposal just a few weeks ago. So we'll jump right into it. Our charge was to incorporate STREAM, to recommend support structures, to develop something that would be replicated to all 10 campuses, needed to be innovative, unique to Space Center, with reasonable funding services. That was a whole school model. That was one thing that we heard very, very high in the need list from Vision 2030, was that it would be a whole school model that would affect all students at that campus. It was also to elevate the current Space Center practices as well as protect current electives. So next we have the recommendation of the structure. There are 9 key structures here for you to take a look at. I will say the bottom 3 are continuations, but we felt like they were extremely important to who Space Center is. Of course, the Leader in Me program that Dr. Thornton has. In fact, today I think they had their recertification for Lighthouse. And so we definitely wanted to protect that area. The experiential learning that she shared the last time we were together, they had over 80% of their students, or right at 80% of their students, travel to the zoo and do an experiential learning trip, not just a field trip, but a true experiential learning. And then, of course, our fine arts electives. Those 3 we won't necessarily tap into here in the next few minutes, but we did want to bring them to your attention because they are what makes Space Center so unique and so important. The other 6, of course, we'll break down in order there. Core curriculum, how is that looking? Library makerspace, Cardinal clubs, advanced academics, connection to NASA, and a CT elective. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Mackay, and she'll begin the stream design proposal.
So one of the things our committee looked at is what makes the school innovative and how can we, move towards that. And what we realized is we already have a lot of innovative things going on at that school. How can we capture that? And then looking at national schools of innovation, what do they have in common and what can we take? And so one of the things we noticed was in the core curriculum. And you have 2 backgrounds that you're very familiar with. You're familiar with the RCC and the eSTEM. And both of those models were presented to the committee for consideration. So what we looked at after many meetings was we really like STREAM opportunities identified in the core content like we do with RCC. So RCC was very organic. We looked at our TEKS And then we looked at the computational thinking, the robotics activities that support those TEKs. So it's very TEK aligned. And so the committee liked that we could look at these opportunities in the core content, and that was easily replicable. So if we can find STREAM in the core content, we can take that to 10 schools. And then the other part that they liked is the eSTEM model is engineering. It's in the core content, but in process of that STEM is that engineering, you have projects. You have 4 projects a year. They're bigger projects, and they really like that. And they're like, that is something we can sort of latch on to be innovative, and then we can move those projects and we can incorporate those across the school. So in 8th grade, we are proposing that we start with 2 projects a semester, one in the fall, one in the spring, and then the next year we'll add 7th grade, and then depending on how that goes, we may add 6th grade that same year, or we may have 6th grade wait 1 more year. And to give you an idea of the project, I did the next slide because people start getting excited, because we're not looking at just a project in science. We're really looking at an integrated project that has each of the content areas sort of giving us a piece of it. And so Andrea Fries, our science coordinator, talked to us about the mini PCR project that's being used right now at Brookside. It is thermal cyclers, which basically in fancy science terms allows you to analyze DNA at a deep level. And so we could do a project like that in the spring, and it aligns to our TEKs in gene. We discuss in the TEKs basically genes, inherited genes, and how your genes work. But the biotechnology piece is identify the source of a pathogenic bacteria in space food bound for Mars. So it's a real fun activity. It incorporates the STREAM, the space part. They're doing the biotechnology in 8th grade. We can pull in math with our data analysis. We can pull in our ELA. And then you can see I put our little TEK on the background. So there's a whole lab arranged around that. There's a high level lab, something that we've been doing just for sort of our gifted kids. She's like, we can do it for all kids. Biology in 8th grade regular can do this lab. And so what we're looking at is pulling a small curriculum together to form projects like that are high level, innovative projects, one in the fall, one in the spring, that are TEK aligned, because we cannot just not do our TEKs. So we like to do the hackathons. We've looked at that. We looked at the inventor showcase. And those might be some things that we sort of incorporate later on, but we have to stay to our TEKs. And so that's sort of why we're proposing that part. And the next thing that we looked at is nationally known schools of innovation have strong maker spaces. They have libraries that are the center of their school, and there's a lot of making going on in that. And so we propose to form a small committee and look at how we can align and beef up our makerspace with our TEKs, and really make those centers of innovation for us. So we'll have our core content where we're doing innovative projects, looking at incorporating STREAM, but then your makerspace gives you a place outside where kids can tinker, kids can build, where we can do more. And that would be also hitting all students in that school, which was what was important to us.
Okay, so we do have Cardinal Clubs at our campus. We've been doing that for about 3 years now. And our students get to pick a passion area each 9 weeks to work with. And they get to know kids that maybe they wouldn't know otherwise, and find people that they feel like they connect with. And we were talking about building on that existing structure, but adding in a focus on some clubs on STREAM, but also having micro-credentialing. And what micro-credentialing is, we found it at one of the campuses we looked at. Students get to go to Makerspace and learn how to use a piece of equipment, and then they get a micro-credential, so that any time during the day, if they have extra time, they can go use that piece of equipment. So for example, we have a laser printer at our school, but most of our kids don't know it. Most of our kids don't use it. So one of our clubs would be micro-credentialing for the laser printer. Once they've been through the club and get the micro-credential, they'll be able to use that piece of equipment. And then we also have our connection to NASA and Space Center Houston. We want to continue to explore and nurture those connections. Right now we have a girls STEM Academy that we do at Space Center Houston twice a year, Because of that, Girls STEM Academy, we do get invitations to go over to Space Center Houston for some special events, like if there's an astronaut on the space station and they're doing a connect, we get to go participate in that. Sometimes they'll live stream into the school, that kind of thing. And we'd like to continue to build on that and our partnership with NASA, and potentially have that experiential learning and outreach piece continue to go through NASA and Space Center Houston as well. And then we do want to look at how can we support our advanced academic students. And so we're looking at having a greater depth of knowledge for that depth and complexity icons used throughout the campus. We've started work with that this year. And then having GT clusters for Cardinal Leadership Time, which meets twice a week so that those students can have like-minded individuals to work with.
The final piece of the structures is a CTE focus with an elective. Currently, robotics is offered in all 10 of our intermediates. And so at the Space Center Intermediate, we would be adding coding to that elective list, to where that would be a half year, a semester course that would be attached to robotics. We would be using the code.org, which is a free curriculum that we use currently with our RCC campuses. Of course, it would be for intermediate students. It'd be a local credit that student would earn at that point. As we removed the double block in 7th grade English, we realized there was a need for obviously more electives, and so this would give that student another opportunity to take something that chase their passion, their interest as far as robotics and coding. The 8th grade year, we would be implementing a course called Engineering Essentials. Kudos to Dana and Casey over in CTE for bringing this to our attention. This is a kind of an intro engineering course that falls underneath the umbrella of Project Lead the Way that a lot of us obviously are familiar with. If you go to the next slide, it'll tell you a little bit. Of course, Project Lead the Way is a series of engineering courses developed by educators and industry professionals that gives a comprehensive learning experience to our students that are interested in engineering. We currently have these courses offered at all 5 comprehensive high schools. There's the list there. And so this would be kind of an intro into engineering, if you will, for students across the district who may be interested in it, but specifically those that are zoned to Space Center. And so the idea there would be a robotics coding in the 7th grade and a move into engineering essentials and Project Lead the Way. And that'd be for, for those students who truly, that's their passion and they're wanting to pursue it. It would be a great opportunity there. Some of the considerations for this engineering essential is, of course, a participation fee. There are grants available. Talked to Casey today. She said next December would be December is usually the deadline for that, so we'll be able to apply for that grant to cover those participation fees, as this is a nationwide program, but highly regarded here in Texas. There is a one-time teacher fee for training and a stipend that goes along with teaching that course. There's a training guarantee that if a PLTW teacher leaves CCISD within those 4 years, they will provide a grant opportunity to train a new teacher. So we don't lose that funding. They'll bring somebody else in and pick that up. The other things for consideration, of course, additional lab space needed. We'll have to go in and do some different things with our current lab there at Space Center to get it ready. And it would be exclusive to Space Center. When we start talking about that uniqueness of the campus, trying to give a broad stream spectrum to all 10, but something unique to Space Center, this is where that piece comes in. So we're super excited and thankful that CTE brought this to our attention, and looking forward to the students jumping into this and really preparing their way for high school. The last slide there is just a phase-in approach. Again, we want to make sure that we do things right, so we'll take it year by year. You can see next year, of course, our 6th grade launch, as Dr. Ingalls mentioned, is already in effect. We would be adding the 7th grade coding to the robotics course, and then the 8th grade stream projects that Dr. Mackay mentioned, one in the fall and one in the spring. Phase 2 would then be adding the stream projects down to the 7th grade, and also adding the Project Lead the Way course, Engineering Essentials, in that 26-27 school year. And then finally, if necessary, that phase 3 is optional. We would bring the STREAM projects down to the 6th grade. Now, our students currently do projects in the launch course already. And so we need to have time to figure out how that's working, and do we have the capacity to add another set of projects in with that launch, or is launch enough to meet the needs of those students? So that phase 3 truly is an optional phase if we look to do that. Finally, facilities and personnel recommendations. Dr. McKay mentioned the makerspace and supplies. Currently, our students can either attend the library session or the makerspace session. They can't coexist together. And so there's a need there to create a separate area for our makerspace that would allow classes to be held in both areas at the same time in order to serve more students. We mentioned the upgrading of the lab space for the engineering essentials and coding class. Create collaborative workspaces to be used by classes for those integrated projects that Dr. McKay mentioned, one in the fall, one in the spring. And then as we progress into this, the additional teaching unit specialized to teach the robotics coding along with the project Lead the Way course. When we did Vision 2030, we looked at each intermediate, how we could actually do some of this work from a physical standpoint. Mr. Miller shared that with us. We went review back over it today on an area that we could use for makerspace, as well as an area within Space Center's current building where we could use for that collaboration space for our integrated project. So to say all that, that's a whole lot, and I appreciate the time and patience, but we're super excited. I do want to commend Dr. McKay and Dr. Thornton. They did a fantastic job of leading this committee, and this committee was excited to say the least. In fact, there were a few times where we had to kind of back them off just a tad and say, hey, let's take it slow, let's figure this out, because this is the one time that we get to do this, and we need to make sure that we do it right. The great thing is, I feel like not only have we developed something that will promote STREAM throughout that campus, it will give it that uniqueness that we know is so important, and maybe the most important piece as we look to the future is the structure is replicable. We can take this same structure and take it to our other intermediates as they begin to work towards the STREAM integration as well as primary emphasis, and it truly become a plug and play with the structure. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll take any questions or comments you have.
Thank you, Mr. Moses. Any questions from the board? Comments?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I think this is fantastic. It's evident that you've put a lot of hard work into this and worked your way through some of the thorny issues it creates. And I couldn't be more excited about it and for students in Space Center. So definitely well done there. A couple of questions I have. You kind of addressed this already, but there are obviously some aspects here that you see as being sort of portable to the other intermediate schools, and then some that are going to stay unique to Space Center. Do you feel like this model could be applied to other intermediate schools, maybe with a change in emphasis? Like, for instance, if you wanted to take a different intermediate school and give them more of a fine arts focus, could the same structure still kind of work where you create electives around that, you create projects around it, work it into the curriculum there, or would it maybe need more modification?
No, I think that's the main piece. Where you go back and I don't know, like if you go back to those keys, the recommendation of STREAM structure, when you look at it, I mean, it's truly the beauty of it is truly a plug and play.
Yeah.
That core curriculum, those projects. So we're going to go STREAM across the board with space and technology, robotics, engineering, arts, and medicine. But each campus will have the ability to choose their primary emphasis based on maybe what's already happening as far as the culture. Obviously, Ann's campus geographically, it just made sense to go to space. I can see where, and I don't want to put anybody in a box here, but I can see where like Victory Lakes may be more of a medicine situation with UTMB being right there in their backyard and really working on that partnership. So I think there's some awesome opportunities for this. The makerspace obviously is able to go across all 10 campuses. Each one of them have their own, what they call special interest groups, right? They call theirs Cardinals Club. And so that works out well. So yeah, I feel very confident that we can take this exact string structure and move it over the next 4 years to each campus and have something that is similar but unique for each
or
campus.
maybe just go one by one, kind of as the years go on. So what is the plan for kind of, because
Okay, but your device has to be unlocked for that.
I don't know why the phone thought I was talking to it. Not asking Siri, I'm asking
We don't. We'll take the question.
Okay. Hey Siri, what's the plan?
Right here. Go ahead. I'll write it
Look, our rising fifth graders going into sixth grade, obviously they're making decisions about whether to go to WAVE, what schools they want to go to. So what are we kind of starting to talk to them about this also, and maybe let some of those kids know that we're going to have these programs for them, especially, I mean, the rising sixth graders, they're going to be able to start when they hit seventh grade on projects because we'll already be in year 2.
Correct.
So what does that look like?
And that's the reason why we kind of accelerated this proposal project. At first, the proposal project was going to come in February to you guys. Then we realized we've got to get it prior to registration of classes and courses and EPGs and all those things. And so that's why all of this has been accelerated so that we can present this to the fifth graders. Families can start looking at this and saying, hey, my kid's going in seventh grade, they'll be able to do projects. Eighth grade, they'll be able to possibly go into the engineering course and all that. So we're going to make sure that we get all this approved and ready to go before we even start the EPG or course registration process.
Perfect. And finally, a question for Elena, I think. Now, I actually don't know who does this. I've noticed that on some of the schools where we have kind of a special program like Leader in Me, like I think about Leader in Me Reporter because you drive by it all the time and you see it. Are we going to have something we can actually put on the school that shows that we're doing this, like lettering or something like that?
When we first started talking about this, some pretty awesome mocks that you would have out in front of the school. So yes.
Good. I'm excited. That'll be great.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that because the excitement, I mean, we've been talking about this for at least a year or so, about having those unique programs at each intermediate school. And so it's glad to see this, is in the works and it'll come to fruition. I was trying to do kind of the math on the timeline because next year it's going to be maybe 8th grade, right? And then the next year will be 7th and 8th, and the next year will be 6th, 7th, and 8th. Is that to be, I guess, like a possible another kind of magnet, campus in the future and something y'all can replicate? Because, I mean, obviously you make something unique for that campus and then you've got students who live in League City or Kemah and Seabrook, and they're going to want to have that opportunity also. Sure.
I think we've had that discussion about that and just approaching it as we do all of our intra-district transfers. Mm-hmm. It's a hard word for a Louisiana boy to say. Always telling us a lot of vowels in there, kind of. But we would approach it the same way, much like what they do with ESTEM and RCC. If there's room and availability, then certainly.
Yeah. And I know that, when you mentioned Victory Lakes, I was thinking healthcare. You said medicine, but healthcare, obviously, that's one that's, you got Memorial Hermann right there across the freeway from him as well. So, yeah, I love it. Keep it coming. I think that's that Vision 2030 that we were kind of thinking about. And as we were, the last bond even, there were things that there was renovations to intermediate schools that we were saying, let's hold off on that. Let's see what programs are going to come to us and then let that dictate what it's going to look like. And this is, I think, what we were asking for.
And I think as we get a couple of years into this at Space Center, then the needs are going to kind of arise. Y'all are going to start to realize, well, we really do need a room For like we
Right.
need a room full of refrigerators for these or whatever it ends up being, or we need computer space or something like that. But those kinds of needs will arise as the program matures, and that's when we come back and really take a hard look at it.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
I was just going to say ditto. When we had these discussions of Vision 2030, and when we did pull back from, those discussions of maker spaces and things like that at the intermediate level, I think, we're waiting for the programs and to be able to strategically, think about what each campus needs. So this is fantastic. I think the key piece is the communication aspect of it. Letting our community partners know what's going on, letting the community know, letting, all of the stakeholders that we think are involved. I go back to our previous discussion, and when we talk about pre-K, those are some of the things, I think that communication piece, if we can get ahead of that, and if we can get that out there, I think that can stay the conversation of open enrollment. Because really, when we look at it, we need more enrollment at that elementary level. So those are some of the things that I think of is how do we communicate? How do we get that out so people know, right? That's going to be the key essential piece. And talking about this, whether it's Rotaries, whether it's, BAHAP, et cetera, letting everybody know what we are doing within our district and where we're going. So, but kudos, I know you guys have been working on this like ever since, we had those Vision 2030 discussions. I know at one point we were like, take the reins off and just, do what you do. And so these are some of the things that I think evolve out of that. So thank you. And, to Mr. Bowen's comment and Mr. Cottrell's comment, I think as we look at all the other intermediates, we can tap into what's around them. And we can tap into, who wants to get involved, but just can't figure out how to do that. Whether that's the healthcare piece, whether that's NASA, engineering, aerospace, things of that nature, as I think of, Creekside possibly. So it's exciting. This is the forefront of how you transform and how you make your district relevant for the 21st century and beyond. So, excellent.
Any other comments? Mr. Larson?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention when we tackle that communication, it's going to be pretty important to have parents in the loop. And the reason for that is as soon as you start making big changes to one campus and making it unique, parents are going to talk and somebody's going to say, well, why can't I have this at my school? Well, I think we can get ahead of that if we can just point out that we're going to have similar programs at all schools. And I think that'll alleviate a lot of the tension that might come from that.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll just say that Dr. Engel and I have had conversations about education needing to become more nimble. And I think this is a good example. You're probably working at a faster pace than you're used to, and I think that's great. That's what's going to be needed in the future. So thank you.
Mr. Chuck?
I just wanted to say one thing, and this just popped to mind. When we had this discussion for Vision 2030, we looked at Space Center was a campus that loses a large amount of kids, their brightest kids, to way even to other programs. And if we communicate, what we're trying to do at each campus, that hopefully will keep these kids at their home campus, because that was one of the discussions we had when we looked at 140 kids, I think. Your A, B, and your high performers were leaving the campus. As we dove into the star scores and things of that nature. So I think this is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you all. It is exciting to see this come together, and definitely taking some deliberate steps to make sure that it's something that can be replicated. Definitely will meet the interest and expectation of the community. And I think when we talk about providing options to students within public education, this is probably another example of what that looks like. And so thank you for helping bring this to life, and really we look forward to seeing that come together. Dr. Thornton, I was bragging about Space Center Intermediate the other day with a couple of parents, and they were commenting just how impressed and excited they are about all of the things that are happening there. I walked away with that impression when I was there on the first full day of school, when I expected students maybe to be a little bit more excited and talkative, and they were focused and listening on the expectations that we have of them in an environment where we want them to learn and do their best. So kudos to you as well for everything that's going on at Space Center. The parents that I've spoken with are extremely proud. They're thankful that their children are getting such a great experience and learning environment. And I look forward to getting to come visit again soon. So thank you.
Welcome anytime.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'd just like to say one thing too as they're leaving, but we really looked at, and going back to what Dr. Lankai said, but that model of RCC and ESTEM, and really getting that campus input and buy-in, and they've done an amazing job. And I believe your PTA has been a part of this. Is that correct?
Yes, we had our PTA president on the committee, and we've already talked to the PTA board, and they're really excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Getting all of that buy-in from the families is what you're talking about. So thank y'all. All right, we have another exploration team to give you an update on, and our college preparatory stream opportunity. This is still in the exploration phase, but we have some definitive pieces on that. So we're going to go ahead and share that with you.
I do want to just start with the importance of messaging and marketing. And we had a great meeting last week, put us in a room to figure out who gets to own the stream, whether it's the college preparatory program or the intermediate. And we quickly realized that's just who we are. And just from a branding, you can see the stream that goes through, that's actually the creek, our creek. So just as you're going to get to know this quite a bit. So we do see CCISD as a stream of innovation, and Mr. Moses and team just spoke about the intermediate plans, and we're just going to briefly update you on the exploration work for the college preparatory stream project. Just to recenter as to the why, there's a lot of excitement happening right across the street from Space Center Intermediate with the soon-to-be groundbreaking of Texas A&M Space Institute. And how could we provide opportunities for students in this area, specifically juniors and seniors, and this would be open to students across CCISD and our area. So we're talking about open enrollment. This would be an opportunity to open this up to everyone, and replicable. We believe strongly that if our vision comes to reality, that this is something that can be replicated across the state of Texas, and we just become the starting point for it. And so this is the profile of a student that we are planning around, and that's a student interested in advanced academics, is prepared to take university level courses, and that they would receive certifications of completion from major universities that would partner with us to develop this curriculum, and they would remain back at their home high school, so that we're not taking the brightest from all the high schools and putting them in one location. That was fundamental to our beliefs, that they would still go back to their home high school, very similar to how dual credit and some of our CTE programs operate today. And so our update is that we continue to meet with higher education and industry partners. We did formally submit a grant to the Texas Space Commission on Friday of last week. Mr. Cunningham happened to be in the building, and he did the honors of signing us onto that application. And we are seeking letters of support from some of the partners that we've been talking with, and that we anticipate, from what we're hearing, that these grants could be awarded as early as December. But I think we'll learn more. Dr. Kai and I are going to some workshops with the Texas Space Commission to learn more about that process and what they're envisioning. And so that's kind of where we are at this point.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena. Any questions? Any board comments?
Just want to say it's exciting. That's going to be huge. If we can land that, I think it's December 4th. If we can hear something right around that time, and if we land that, it's going to be big.
Yeah, and I know we talked before about the program schedule that was at a previous workshop. Is that still about what's being looked at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We didn't put those in there, but basically university level courses.
Right.
It's really nothing that we have currently, but university level coursework created with partnering with different universities, and then those courses potentially could be replicated at different areas across the state to get that pipeline of interested. And the two pathways were space, aerospace engineering, space engineering, and then yes, and then medicine.
and that's in one of our previous
It
workshops.
is, right,
Okay,
right.
so I just wanted. We're still on that. That's still the
Yes.
pathway.
We are, and
Health
as
science.
we continue to have conversations with potential partners who are equally excited about this concept, they're giving us some really good ideas too. So it's just really building off of the initial idea, and it's multiplying.
It's always fun to hear good news, and that is good news. And I just wanted to say, if you get some word back sometime in December, that would be a wonderful Christmas present.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Go to the next one.
Yes, I'm sorry. We have a lot. All right, so what we will now, and our final information and discussion item is really looking at potential replication of the CTE Culinary Arts Program. And at the October board meeting, Dr. Silva and Ms. Bevel, along with some students, gave an update on the outstanding district-wide culinary program housed at Clear Springs High School. And I would like to turn this over to Dr. Silva to further discuss this program, and Mr. Miller will then explain details regarding the project. You have been receiving some information in the Friday packet, so we are going to kind of summarize some of that for you. Thank you. Dr. Silva?
Thanks, Dr. Engel. We're excited today. We were happy to share at our workshop last month a spotlight of our culinary program. And I think you heard a little bit about it at Springs, but most importantly, we heard from Abby and Caleb and Mena, and really they were the true bright lights in the spotlight. But we wanted to share also, when we think about our strategic plan, talking about and reinforcing the idea of replicating successful programs. This one rose to the top as a potential for that idea. So I wanted to introduce Dana Morgan, our director of CTE, and Liz Raska, our principal at Clear Lake High School, and they will share a little bit more information with you about culinary.
Well, first I want to, I hope everyone can see what's up here. I want to kind of give a framework of where we are with CTE specialty programs. I know we have so much stuff going on in the district and in CTE as well. Sometimes it's kind of hard to keep up with everything. So this is just kind of a review of our specialty programs. At Clearbrook High School, we have robotics and computer technician. At Clear Creek High School, we have the construction technology program, metal manufacturing, and dental. At Clear Falls High School, we have biotechnology and computer technician as well. I'm going to skip Lake because I'll come right back to it. Clear Springs High School, automotive technology and culinary arts. Clearview High School, CNA, cosmetology, and welding. Now I'll go back up to Lake. As you can see, at Clear Lake High School, we do only have one specialty program right now. So we have been for quite some time talking about and brainstorming about what are some other potential things that we could do at Clear Lake High School to bring another program there. And this culinary arts has recently kind of risen to the top with Miss Raska kind of leading the way with some things that she wanted to do with her campus.
So with Clear Lake High School, with biomedical science being our only specialty program, biomedical science is an advanced science program. All of the coursework in the biomedical science program is a 6.0 advanced academics program, which means in order for a student to complete 4 years of the program, they have to be an advanced science and math student before they ever reach high school. So there's no opportunity for a student at Clear Lake High School who is not college bound prior to entering high school to enter a specialty CTE program unless they travel to another campus. With the demographic shift that we have seen in the Clear Lake community over the last 5 to 10 years, the majority of our students who need a skills-based program do not have access to one. And so we have a tremendous need and an ever-increasing need in Clear Lake for a skills-based program. We are currently sitting at 40% at risk, with 11% of those students being emerging bilinguals. The majority of those students not being a traditional college-bound student because they are coming to us with significant gaps in their education. We are also cresting 32% socioeconomically disadvantaged, with about 4% of that predicted to be unreported at this time. So we're at our highest levels of low socioeconomic as Clear Lake has ever been in its recent history. And so given the success of the culinary arts program and looking at resources available and where the overall district interest has been in CTE, culinary arts just stands out. There are over 120 students who put in applications district-wide every single year, but the capacity of the current program is only 60 students. We anticipate that if we had a second program or an expansion to that program, the number of applications would actually increase. Currently, Clear Lake High School students, the majority of the students who would be interested in these programs don't even submit applications because the requirement is they have to be able to provide their own transportation, and our students can't do that. So they don't even bother to submit applications. So expanding a program that is one, skills-based, 2, has no prerequisites, and 3, actually gives them a certification that they could earn prior to graduation would be phenomenal for our students. The employment rate right now of the chefs in the hospitality-related personnel is an increasingly growing field, and the students who would benefit the most from this at Clear Lake High School, a majority of them are already working in this industry. And so this would give them a certification that they could use while in high school, because a lot of these students are also the sole income earners in their household already.
Okay, and what would make this program special as well, and would differentiate it a little bit from our Clear Springs culinary program, is that we would be building this out in the Learner Support Center, where our district's catering facilities are currently located. which gives us the opportunity to have a kind of unique partnership in that this culinary program would be partnering with our CCISD nutritional department. Being adjacent to it, they would be able to get involved in some of the day-to-day activities of our catering department. And then as they go through the program and become advanced students, they could be hired to actually work in the department as far as like part-time catering jobs. So all of the delicious meals that our child nutrition department caters right now, it would just be awesome to have some students behind it as well, and not only prepare the food on the back end, but actually serve at events as well.
So early this year, Liz, Franklin, and Dana approached our team really asking questions about what the opportunities would be. They'd already done a lot of work, as they mentioned, about the need and identifying what they felt like was the best approach. We talked about the Learner Support Center. We really talked a lot about the adjacency to the catering program. I know Liz and Dana and Fred and Alex worked a lot of hours really trying to figure out what we needed to do over there. So we've got a little, the floor plan here is really an overall floor plan really for estimating purposes to make sure that we could obtain funding prior to taking off with the design work, understanding that this is going to be a very tight turnaround to have it ready for a fall 26 opening. So we're working already to really tighten this up to make sure that we're ready to do that when the time comes, if the time comes. So what you can see at the top there, the blue area, that's the proposed culinary arts lab. It's a large classroom lab space that was recently vacated by our specialized services department as part of the behavioral support center at LSC renovations that we did. So it's really a great use of that space that was vacated. It is adjacent to the existing catering kitchen, and so it really made sense to be able to have that integration between the classroom students and the ongoing catering operations that they do every day. There's a lot of activity that goes on over there. The green area and the slightly purple area there in the middle is where we're likely to have our renovated catering kitchen. As we work through this, they really needed a space where those kids could show off their talents, and so that bistro/restaurant lab space was carved out of the existing serving line and kitchen. And in order to do that, we really needed to make that whole operation work much more efficiently. So this plan includes redesigning that kitchen to make it the most ideal for a catering operation that would be working with our CTE students as we continue our operations. And you'll see there at the bottom, the little green area, that is the bistro and the restaurant type training ground there that they have. And so it's going to be a really nice facility and would really meet the needs of those students. And it was really as we worked through it was great watching them collaborate and understanding how they're going to be able to really both benefit from this. We'd have students who'd be able to be paid an hourly rate to work during school hours, after school hours, really whatever our catering operation needed. And then they would also get real world training as they work through it. So I think we've got a lot of opportunity here for great collaboration. We did a few renderings just to kind of show you what our current vision of that would look like from the commons over at the Learner Support Center. You can imagine, our culinary arts people being there for robotics competitions, really serving food and selling food and doing those kinds of things. You'd be able to do that here. Of course, any of our activities we have over there, anything that Lake High School has going on, there's lots of opportunities. As you can see, it'd be a really nice space in addition to the Learner Support Center. Just a couple more renderings of the interior space so they'd be able to serve food there and have it open up into using some of our nano walls that we use, where you'd be able to open that up or see through it flat. So it's really some good treatment that they would do there and make it really feel to those kids like it's a real world restaurant experience. It's just another view from the other direction. that space. We really didn't have any renderings for the kitchen yet because we're still digging into the equipment that's going to need to go in there. And like I said, we were really doing this as an operation to really get an estimate of what it would cost to do that kind of a renovation. We're currently estimating it at $2.5 million. Depending on how far we go into 2025, by the time we bid the job, that's why that 25 number of 2,676 really depends on inflation. That does include about $775,000 just in equipment costs. A small piece of that, around $40,000 to $50,000, is for a new freezer cooler for child nutrition. So Fred would be able to cover that with some of his funding. The rest of it is all in the culinary arts lab, so we would include that in the funding request. The $860,000 is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology. All underground sewer systems, all of those things are 1972. So this number includes kind of ripping that up and making sure it's up to current code, new grease traps, new MEP systems for ductwork and ventilation, all of those things is part of that number. It also includes reworking the existing kitchen to meet the efficient design of a catering kitchen, which is really just renovation walls, moving things around, and relocating existing equipment. Then you've got 373, that's really renovation for finishes in all the areas, including the bistro area. We've got a few little tie-ins and contingencies that we always include in those. But the total is about $2.5 million that we think that we'd be able to do this work for. And then on the last slide, really looking at our project timeline, if this is something that the board's interested in moving forward with. We would request capital funding at next week's board meeting so that we could initiate contracts to actually dig into the real design work, construction documents, all the things we would need to do. Then on December 3rd, because this is City of Houston, we know it takes a really long time to get a permit. We would immediately submit those drawings in early December. We expect by December 20th to have 95% drawings ready for advertising and bidding. We would go to the February board meeting to award the construction contract, and then we would hope for a substantial completion date of July 31st. Obviously, during this entire time, we're back and forth with the City of Houston, submitting new drawings, getting new comments, doing our normal process. The good news is there's no drainage or detention calculations that go in because it's all in existing building. So that may make this really worthwhile and able to complete and be ready for the school, for the students. It does also assume there's going to be some equipment ordered in December so that we can make sure that it arrives in time for installation by the contract. So I'll turn it back over to y'all for the programmatic.
Okay, yeah, timeline is in this upcoming course selection, which is in February 2025, students would be able to apply and course select the program. Of course, prior to February, if all is a go, Liz and I have talked a lot about how can we promote this, how we can get some excitement behind it to where we really get it out there and the kids know that it's an option. So that'll actually even be occurring before February, maybe kick it off at the beginning of the year. And then to ensure we do have a instructor that's qualified and motivating to students, we want to interview, have that position approved and interview for that position in the spring as well, for them to actually start the 2025 school year and then have the first class of culinary arts at Clear Lake High School to open in August 2025.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Cunningham?
I want to be the first customer. Dana, I wanted to thank you for slide 2, that, basically gives us the breakdown of the specialty programs. I was aware there's actually a couple programs on here I wasn't quite aware that were specific to a certain campus, so thank you for that. And lastly, I'll just say when we talk about fidelity, when we talk about, creating some parity and making sure that our students across the district are exposed to different things. I know we've talked about this, having, a program over here, WAVE, and having the same thing on the west side of 45. So I think, we have the space at the LSC. We have a need. When you look at Great Wolf Lodge going in, all of the eateries that are popping up, et cetera, feels a need. And I'll just say this, if Clear Lake has the same success as Clear Springs has had in their culinary arts program, and if they can find a teacher that was as passionate as Chef Tate and his wife, kudos. That's a win-win. When we think of Heather Jefferson starting, Clear Lake Market and things like that, and how we've replicated that at our high schools, this is just fantastic. So.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so do you anticipate enrollment being about 60 students like it is at Springs?
Eventually.
And do you think some of the applicants, obviously from Lake, but also from the east side schools would go to the Lake program instead of the Springs program? So it would kind of open up more spots across the district?
As of right now, what we were thinking of doing is for the application process, when the students apply, they can pick culinary arts at Clear Lake High School or culinary arts at Clear Springs High School. If all the numbers balance out, that's great. If it doesn't, then, well, maybe you didn't get into Lake, but you're accepted into Springs. So, because, instead of funneling them to a specific one, you never know where students end their day. They may go to school at Clear Lake High School, but have a job closer to Clear Springs. So they're like, let me finish out at the end of the day at Springs because I work across the street at, XYZ.
Yeah, I think that works out.
So, and then I think in the promotion too, we can kind of distinguish. If we're going to promote for Lake, we'll probably have to put a little bump behind Springs as well. But I kind of see with the child nutrition and having the ability to do more catering. I don't know if you guys have noticed with our Clear Springs program, but for the most part, if you're going to take advantage or if you're going to eat you're eating at the bistro doesn't come to you, right? So, yes, we can cater desserts because they're easy to transport, but as far as doing full meals, we don't have the catering capacity to pack up a van with all the equipment and go. And so I see this one as maybe being a little more of a catering arm, not just the restaurant itself. So.
Well, that artist rendering of the bistro looks fantastic.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure Springs is going to want an update. Just don't show them. Just don't show them.
Yeah.
Mr. Larson.
First of all, the second, I think it's the second to last chart or the last chart, this one that has all the planning information on. I appreciate the work that went into that. That really helps us out. The next thing I wanted to say was if we're oversubscribed 2-to-1 now, this kind of makes its own case. I think it's kind of obvious. And the last thing I want to say is if this, presumably this becomes a reality and we have a program at Springs and a program at Lake, well, every year we're going to have a bake-off or something.
It's all about it.
It's on. Let's go.
That puts that chili cook-off
yeah, there you go.
The staff chili cook-off. Yeah.
Mr. Larson is a mean chili cook-off judge. So he will try every single bit of it. So, any other comments or questions?
Yeah. So of the 60 that didn't get in, where were they all were they located mostly in Clear Lake, or how did the other 60?
That really varies. It varies so much from year to year. But also, I will say that sometimes if a student doesn't get in, what we do is we give priority to seniors, then juniors, then sophomores. So of the 60, there may have been a sophomore that applied that we didn't have space for, but they'll get in as a junior, or a junior that'll eventually get in as a senior. But ideally, if there's a student that wants to be in the program for all 3 years, that's really what we want to accommodate. Actually, I believe the students that spoke at the spotlight were all in year 3. We're all in year 3. So those are the ones that really rise to the top as far as the top level.
Well, I mean, I almost like saying it's about time, but but this is definitely something that the community will embrace. I know that with all their dine out to donates, and with so many of these students work down in Kemah. I've spoken with their GM down there before about helping work with Clear Springs Culinary to get training, and then they can have jobs waiting for them over at the boardwalk. So it's great that they'll have more opportunity. This is what it's really about, is giving the kids more opportunity in the district. Another program, but definitely one that we definitely want the kids to have those opportunities to partake in. It's an industry that they'll learn a lot. I know there's quite a few restaurant owners who live in the Clear Lake area, so they'll be excited to see some of that training right there in their back door as well. I guess when you're hiring, you're going to look for like a Gordon Ramsay kind of guy, somebody that runs a kitchen like that. Just saying. But it's great it's great thinking, because it's repurposing the property that's sitting there. Every time I go to the LSC, I'm like, oh, I remember when this was a real school. I mean, and constantly been thinking like how we can give it some life, and so this is great. It's exciting to see. There's a kitchen sitting over there, and it's a great investment in my opinion. Investing in repurposing the place and giving all the students that opportunity. I think there's going to be great buy-in, a lot of great excitement from the community. So
well, just if we're able to utilize, especially with all the robotics competitions and things of that nature that are over there. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
And the potential of that could be wow.
And really, once it's ready to open and communications wise and everything, to have a ribbon cutting even with the Clear Lake Chamber and all of their, restaurant businesses and leaders and everything, to see that we've got that program right there, in the heart of Clear Lake with all those students and everything. I mean, there would be great buy-in. Everybody would be so excited to do it. You're going to need more chairs.
More tables.
I do have a question. When the students sign up, is there a way for them to indicate a preference for one program or the other? Because I would hate for there to be a Springs kid who wants to go to either the Springs Culinary who gets forced to go over to Lake, while there's another kid at Lake who's forced to go to Springs. You know what I'm saying here?
Yes, they will be able to pick. It's kind of like right now, if you're a student and you go in, the difference in applying for dental and applying for computer technician. So what we would do is we would just have culinary arts, Clear Lake High School, culinary arts, Clear Springs High School location. So they pick it. And they would have the option to even pick both, because students can apply to more than one program as well.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? I did have just a couple questions. Mr. Miller, you mentioned the possibility of using some federal funds towards the cost. I didn't know if there are a lot of restrictions around it.
There are. It really is it's a freezer, walk-in freezer cooler that needs to be replaced for the catering program. That part of that $775,000 is the only thing that child nutrition can fund, because it's used in the child nutrition program. Whereas all the remaining $725 in equipment is all part of the culinary arts lab, which would meet the requirements for child nutrition.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as during a normal day, would students from Lake be able to go over to have lunch there or at any point, or how would that work?
It would not operate as an open restaurant on a typical day. So they wouldn't go over for lunch on a regular day, but our teachers could potentially, we were talking about the idea of our teachers could potentially order lunch and have our students cater lunch for them on certain days of the week. We talked about the possibility of opening the restaurant to our gold card holders on certain days of the week. So looking at how we could serve the community and give back to the community as well. So.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The idea of being able to control student body access from one building to the other over the course of lunch is just a terrifying thought.
As the principal,
like 5 more SLOs and about 6 more security guards, and then
right. And then I did wonder some of the potential partnerships, even as we could invite them to maybe become friends of the foundation if they aren't already, and then the chance for that to lead to additional support once it's up and running, I think might be interesting just to see what that looks like. When I think Mr. Cunningham mentioned, or somebody mentioned, Great Wolf Lodge opening up, and just thinking about just the volume and all of the other restaurants in the area that have really popped up. I just imagine they would be interested in making maybe a small contribution to a pool of workforce candidates for the future. So that's exciting. The last piece I'll mention, and I mentioned this to Dr. Engel right before the workshop, I think there are elements that could make their experience even more enhanced if we think about how it ties into what we're doing in other parts of student learning. So if we think about the space component, and we think about the health and nutrition around what they're doing and what they're learning, and then having possibly somebody from NASA or one of the contractors share with them just the process that they go through to evaluate individual astronauts that are going to spend time off the Earth, and the level of nutrition that they have to measure for. I know some of the Hunch students have participated in a culinary arts competition where they can compete to prepare recipes that could potentially be flown and then ultimately fed to the astronauts. And so just thinking about some additional ties might be interesting just from a position standpoint.
We're going to go in the business of selling space food.
Space food, it could happen.
The space intermediate, space food.
If it's going into space, it has to be very spicy. I don't know if you know that, but
yeah, spicy and a tortilla, I think, is often how things are eaten. So, and then I did wonder, CC, is it for Clear Creek? I wasn't sure.
It was just something that grew in as Clear Creek.
we talked about having a community competition to name the bistro.
Okay.
To increase advertisement, marketing, and engagement with the student body and the community. So.
And then we're also hoping to get, you had mentioned Heather Jefferson, who's the marketing and school business teacher over there, getting her students looped in marketing this program as well. So we'll have extra staff to help us with the kids involved.
As well as our AV program.
Oh, correct. Yeah.
Good deal. That's awesome. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much. That's it. Okay. Well, with no further business, we will adjourn at 6:11.